All right, everybody. So we are live today on my YouTube channel, Herdy One, and this is an impromptu podcast. Danny L. Smith over here, mentor coach. We'll be talking to him in a few minutes, and let me go back and backtrack where we're at here. So, Danny, I think I started. I'm trying to remember, Danny. I think it's 2009 when I started my business, and I think we met at CVLG. I think was our first encounter, right? And
Was.
you were already a John Maxwell certified coach, and I was starting the business, and we started talking, and you ended up becoming my coach. But there's a big, long, funny story we won't have time to get into today. But Danny told me, go read this book called E Myths Revisited, right? Do that first. And then we'll sit down, have a session or two, and we'll go through this. And if I remember correctly, I was getting so busy, I was tasking more than I was working. Does that make sense? I was working outside the business, not on the business. And Danny, Danny made me list all the things that should not be doing. So Danny, I'm gonna. What ended up happening is I had about a stack of 3x5 cards with everything I was tolerating and not accomplishing in my business. Right, and I carried that around on a ring.
Yeah, actually, it was. I had you write down everything you were doing,
Everything.
everything,
Yeah.
literally as minute as normally I can't get people to get minute enough, and you
Right.
did, which and then we started going through. Okay, which of these can you eliminate? You were
Right.
talking about hiring an assistant.
Right.
And so we went through that process, and it was over a few weeks, maybe months. You realize we're right up front. Maybe I don't need to hire somebody. I need to start offloading some of this stuff that I just shouldn't be doing.
Right. And it took a while to do that, but the bottom line is Danny, I've been connected both as friends, and he helps me out when I get stuck. I kind of send him some stuff and we talk offline, and he kind of takes me in guidance. But the beautiful thing is to catch him and get an hour of his time today is pretty amazing because the guy's really busy, but he is a John Maxwell certified coach. That's how I know him. And if you were to go down to a playlist on this channel, you'll see a podcast with me and him where we actually did something very similar to what you're seeing right now, where we actually did 1 week at a time on the 15 invaluable laws of growth, which really came out to be a fantastic podcast. And you guys are welcome to, after this is over, to go check it out. But today, I wanted to catch up with Danny because Danny's really, I'm not going to say change gears. You're still doing what you're doing, but we've all have to change and evolve as things change, right? And we get more focused into what we're trying to do within our business. So really, really quickly, Danny, go ahead if you don't mind, since a lot of people are going to be listening in. We've already got two people live with us, and you can comment, by the way, if you like, and we'll post those. Give us a little history, not long, just kind of tell us how you evolved to where you're at now.
Well, when you and I met, I think you and I met around 2011. You'd been in business for a couple of years.
Okay, yeah, right. So I was about 2 years into my business. Okay, that's correct.
Um, and I had started my consulting company a few months, or maybe a year before that. Was in the mortgage business, been in the mortgage business at that time over 30 years, but was transitioning out. So started a consulting company originally to help people hire the right people and then put them in the right seat. Went through that process. That company, Impact Leadership, turned into a training company where we started doing a lot of training also. And jump forward till 19, I brought in a couple of partners. They took over all that training, expanded that from I had about 17, 20 hours worth of training classes, mostly all around productivity, leadership, and things. They've expanded it. They've got about 60 hours now. I don't do much over in that part of it anymore. Originally joined the John Maxwell team in about 2013 or 14.
Yep.
Primarily to give me some more leadership training. It was just for me, and
Right.
intending to do anything with it, but did, and don't do other than just what I use from John and his team. I use every day. I mean, we're all leading every day because we're influencing.
Yeah.
And today I operate, consult back in the mortgage business. Got out of the mortgage business, transitioned out of it hardcore a couple of years ago, and consult and coach primarily around one of the things that
Danny, stop real quick. I'm going to go ahead and pull up your website while you're talking,
Yes.
okay? Because then we'll come back to some questions, but let me show people exactly what you're doing, because that's the best way to do it. So guys, hang on. I'm going to present I'm going to share his screen here because it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And there we go. So there is your entrepreneursjourney.biz. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And, today, and it's been a transition. I've had to step back from 2 years ago. I really stepped back from, now I will say this, if you go back up to my vision or my mission is,
right.
I'm striving to finish well and help other people do the same. I mean, that's it. If for the most part, that's it. Now I do that through, small businesses,
right?
Or 80% of all businesses go under in the first 2 years, and 80% of those that survive 2 years don't make it 10 years. And
why is that, do you think?
Well, there's two big reasons.
Right.
One reason is lack of sales. You take somebody like you, maybe you're great at YouTube, real good at Google. You're an expert at it. You got numerous certifications at it. You've been doing it, let's say, at a company for somebody else, and you have this entrepreneurial seizure, and you go out on your own. Well, all of a sudden, you've got to be outside your norm instead of being behind the camera or on the computer. You have to be out making sales calls some way, form, or fashion. You've got to start. I call it clicking and clacking on the keyboard and developing leads. You're buying leads, or you're working LinkedIn, or you're knocking on doors. If you're a B2B, you're going door to door. Some people do that. Or you're buying leads to make phone calls, so you're smiling and dialing.
Right.
Or you're out networking. And you and I, in our networking world that we're in, we see a lot of people that they're out doing that, but they don't know how to do that well. They don't know how, so they lack cash flow, and they don't make it 2 years. Yeah. Rarely does somebody, the second reason they don't make it 10 years is because they, let's say they make it 2 years, their cash flow's going, and they continue with cash flow, it's going well, but they don't have systems around their business.
Good point.
To support scalability.
Good point. Really good point.
That was kind of with you, and I just told you to go right, but you bought however many 3x5 cards, and you started detailing down. That when we started establishing systems around that, started getting rid of some things. One big thing but those are the two big reasons. Okay. Right. Now there's a lot of subsets of both of those. One of the subsets of you're on the some people are starters, some are finishers, some are in the middle, kind of back and forth a little bit. And a guy named Patrick Lencioni a few years ago, he and his team defined this. They come up with this book and this assessment called the Working Genius. Okay,
Right.
and so the Working Genius is start to finish. It's somebody wonders about something and then somebody with tenacity finishes it.
Yeah.
Stuff in between. Wondering leads into ideas lead into somebody's got to make a decision, then somebody's got to rally and sell and galvanize it, and then somebody's got to kind of keep that going.
Yeah.
Okay? Then somebody has to finish it, and you're the Working Genius. You're a discerning. You have the Working Genius of discernment and tenacity.
Right.
Okay? You make good decisions,
Yep.
and you instinctively make a good decision. Then you're trying to finish. Sometimes one of those that will override the other one, but and you're trying to finish things, and you haven't worked through some of the new ideas much. And you've done a good job with using AI and YouTube and other Google type products to help you give yourself new ideas.
And I was going to interrupt you there to finish up on that. Danny's talking about one of your assessments that you work with folks on, which we can dive into a little bit under the consulting side if you want. But I took that and we figured that out about me. And, I do think, Danny, there are people that literally are good at real startup, right? And maybe the business doesn't extend because they either want to get rid of it, they get bored with it, they've done their niche. They like the hustle and the bustle of the startup, right? And then it gets into the day-to-day management, systems, growth, and it's like, that's not my cup of tea. So at that point, they either hire CEOs, CFOs, or the people to run the companies, or they just let it go.
Yeah.
Exactly
right. And there's a whole thing out there. I'm on an advisory board for a company called Startup Anthology, and that whole thing. I don't think you and I've ever even talked about Jeremy Willis and his company, but that's what he is doing is with startups and tech startups and it's a different. I had a company that I started. I had a business plan, 1-page business plan, went to a guy, said, I want you to be my partner, bought him out 2 to 3 years later.
Right.
He came back on board 4 or 5 years after that. But in 2008, had 3 years, had over 400 employees, W-2 employees. And let me tell you, that was me getting that thing up and running. And the people that helped me get it up and running were not the same people I needed, probably 6-7 years into it. And some, I don't know if any of them would end up listening to this, but I carried some people and tried to fix some people and drag some people along that had been best for them and me to have left, for them to have left somewhere along the line. They were great in the startup phase, maybe in the phase where you're starting to try to make everything stabilize. But as you continue to go, you had some people that were too serious of starters. And they were trying to start stuff, and we're just trying to be stable.
Yeah, and funny thing, which I love about your website is you call it something the entrepreneur's journey, and I know over the years we've described things like the pillars, certain things you have the 4 major pillars. But today, and maybe you can tie some of those into this, I want to talk about the first pillar or the first circle on your website, because I want to go through each one of these and how you plug this in to help people. So the first one is generally just a great statement: accountability.
Yeah. If you will, pull up that page, pull up the page and click.
Okay. Hang on. I will do so. Let me present it. Let me go to the screen, share screen, And let's go back to it. There we go. All right. And accountability right there. So let's
Yes.
bring it up. Okay. Go ahead.
So, without accountability, most of us are doing about 20% of what they need to be doing.
Correct.
Literally. And they're not moving through the various, and let's just say that it's just, there are various books out there. The 12-week year speaks to it. The 4 disciplines of execution. Those are the 2 best books I know that speak to
Sure.
a good, the good use of accountability. I never could whip you into shape. Okay. You had to want to, part of my job is to get people, and I've got it right there, get people to own the process. But many times we don't know what to track. Accountability is really about an accountability partner or coach, somebody asking you questions that you're tracking. Okay.
Right.
What have you done this week? I teach
Coming back.
I teach a thing about a scorecard. And
Right.
as you learn how to score your activities every week after week after week, somebody comes home, their partner, their spouse says, "So how was your week? It's Friday night. How was your week?" And maybe you didn't make any sales, didn't have any income coming in. Okay, but how well did you do to get income coming in for next week, next month, next year?
Right.
And that's called a leading indicator. What did you do? And if you learn how to score all the leading indicators, that knocking on doors or the smiling and dialing or the networking and shaking hands and having the right conversation, and then follow up with any and all of that, even on LinkedIn, the follow through process. As you learn how to score that, you go, well, I had 150 points.
Right.
Oh, that was so just an average week, huh? I said, yeah, babe, just a normal week. Or you might go, I had 250 points. And or I only had 50 points. And that's part of that accountability, where you're learning how to be accountable to yourself. And I have clients that I'm on the phone with them once, 2-3 times a week for no more than 10 to 15 minutes. And all I'm doing is ask them questions about their movement. And
Wow.
That's all we're doing. And some of those are just literally once a week. Call in, have a guy at 7:45 every Monday morning. Neil and I are on the phone together, and I'm asking him about what he was going to do last week, what he said he was going to do. Did he do it? And then what's he going to do this week?
Right.
And so
that leads me to a 2-part question for you. The first one is, I assume accountability is not only to which you mentioned, to yourself, but in business, it would be to make the accountability to what steps need to be taken, tasks, the job duties, whatever that is, right, to keep you in the game, so to speak. So,
yeah. Some people, like one client I'm thinking about, when he hired me in August of last year, he had a goal to leave his current company about 9 months later. And,
right.
But he wanted to leave them in good shape.
Okay.
And so as we met every week for just 30 minutes, and a lot of it was just accountability,
right.
30-minute call per week, me asking him the perfect accountability call, even coaching call, is just when all I did was ask questions. I gave no advice. Okay. But most of us all inside of us. We just need to pull it out. We need a lot of times accountability or coaching is just me being a good thinking partner. He ended up leaving his company. It wasn't about his money. It was he already had another business that he and his wife had launched, and they wanted to do that. He wanted to be in that full time. And but he thought it was going to take. Now his plan was 9 months, and he left it in a little bit less than 4 months.
So on the accountability side, under your entrepreneur journey that you help folks with, you keep mentioning this call. Is that something that, and I want to make sure people know you offer that, right? If somebody, do you have the accountability call sessions still set up? How do you handle that?
I don't now. I don't do any group anymore.
Okay.
I stopped that a few months ago, where I just had an open call.
Right.
Had one. I still do some calls inside of a company, three or four, but otherwise they're all individual calls, and
that's fine. So if somebody wants to be in that part of the arena with you, so to speak, then that could be set up where you're helping listen in. Lord, what are you going to do this week? I mean, those will keep you focused if you're really serious about your business.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. No,
I've got one client that he had a new salesperson coming on board.
Yeah.
He said, "You're going to meet with Danny for 15 minutes once a week. Danny's going to teach you his scorecard, and then you're going to turn that into, you're going to meet with him, talk about it, and then turn that into me once a week." That salesperson decided that was too much. He wasn't going to come on board.
There you go. Weed them out. Weed them out.
I've had others that they're not doing real well in their work,
right?
And they're out networking. They hire me as their accountability partner. It's a flat fee, $1,500 a year, and they hire me. There's no refunds, but I will pause it. Okay, that if they want to pause it.
No, that's smart, because everybody has incubation periods. But
and I had people 2 or 3 months in go, "Danny, I realize I'm not going to do all the work that's necessary, and I need to pause."
That's hard. That would be hard to say.
But
at least they're honest.
Yeah, I've had 2 this year just back up on the way they're doing business. They're not going to. So they've gone back to their company to work internal leads or something. They thought they could go out on the streets and meet people, but it's a different role.
So accountability is a big deal. And it's a good start. So let's click on the next one. And I want to keep us face to face. I can always go back to the website, but I know about coaching. So, now a lot's changed since you coached me. Obviously, you kind of fine-tuned all this. So what are you looking for? And what is, I always say, I guess we ask this question all the time: what is coaching? I think most people know what coaching is, but they don't know what the role is that you play with that, right?
Yeah.
You're not their babysitter. Okay. Let's make that clear.
Yeah. Right there on my screen.
Puking is acceptable.
Crying is acceptable. Pain is acceptable. Quitting is not. And
I love that.
There's a lot of excuses, and I live that myself in a lot of ways, including exercise. So
yep.
Let me do it this way. Training, I can go learn some things about a subject and then train people on it with no experience. Teachers do it all the time. Somebody might have a marketing degree, and they get their master's, and they get their doctor's degree, and they go to a university. They've always worked inside the university. They've never been in a marketing position where they got paid other than maybe being an intern, but yet they spend 30, 40, 50 years marketing or teaching marketing.
Yeah.
It's a trainer. Okay. Yeah. For the most part, that's a trainer. A mentor is somebody that has specific experience, and then they mentor somebody around that experience. Somebody that's not let's say this. I know a lady, know of a lady who is a child psychologist, but she never had children. Okay. So maybe she's going to counsel somebody. So she's going to counsel somebody around it, maybe do some training, but she should not be quote unquote mentor. She cannot mentor somebody. I can coach I've worked with, hundreds or even thousands of real estate agents in the mortgage business. I can coach somebody around the sales process, around I can consult them around some setting up processes, but I can't mentor them as an agent. Right. I can't mentor.
Gotcha.
A coach, Tiger Woods had back in his real heyday, he decided after one golfing season, he was going to go and he needed to develop a new swing. He hired him a coach to help him develop that swing. That coach did not show him anything. That coach only coached him through the process of learning a new swing. Tiger knew every once in a while, Tiger would swing and he'd go, "Oh, that was awesome. What did I just do?" So he would go back to ABC or NBC, ESPN, get clips of all of that and look at what he was doing. So he went on to win his biggest titles after hiring a coach to help him with his swing, but the coach didn't train him on that swing. A coaching session is an ideal coaching session when all I do is ask questions. Herdy, how are you doing? How did you do this last week? What are you doing different this week? What problem do you have? Okay, what are you doing about that? Oh, okay, you tell me about a problem. We just work through basically a thinking partner. And I have no dog in the hunt. I'm not trying to lead you down any path. And when you to the point and you're just stuck, and maybe I do have an idea, I ask permission. Herdy, can I step out of the coaching role and give you some advice? And I've had one guy, he won't let me do that. And I love it. He won't let me do that. Okay? So that's the difference in the pure coaching. Now, a lot of people call themselves coaches and that operate under different, and that's not wrong that they're doing it. It's just under my my thoughts. That's what coaching is. And I learned that from a man named Christian Simpson, who for the first 8 or 9 years was the coach trainer at the John Maxwell team.
That's awesome. And so, coaching. Is this a fair statement? If you own a business or start a business, at some point, in order for you to continue that business to be, in most cases, I'm not saying all cases, will you need a personal coach to help you through the certain phases of it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that because
it's the rare. It's so rare. Why would you ever take a chance at it?
I agree.
At doing it different, and there's different coaches for different reasons.
Right.
Now I've coached you, okay, in your world. I've coached insurance agents and realtors and mortgage people, and I've coached the CEO of a high tech company. And a lot of people in between. So that's a real coach doesn't need any, doesn't need a background in that person's business. That person can go hire consultants and different
people. We'll talk about. Yeah, that's like I do. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. But a coach just needs to know how to help somebody rise to the next level.
Yeah. And it's really, I think a lot of people think that coaches are going to just drive them crazy. You know, if you got to do this, you got to do this. And I think that's been misinterpreted in the coaching world, right? Or the coaching part of it from people. So let me ask you this. So from you have consulting as one of your blocks on your page, right? I am truly a consultant in what I do in my niche, right? Can you explain from your website, just in your own words, what the consulting part of what you're offering now?
Yeah, a big part of my consulting, about the only consulting, the consulting that there's one big factor, and then I work primarily. There's another factor I work in, separate. That's part of the bigger factor, but there's the second part of the answer. The second part of the answer why businesses fail, the lack of systems. Mm-hmm. Every business needs a business operating system. Every business needs a business operating system. And the best one out there is Entrepreneur Operating System. Everybody calls it EOS. There's 30,000 registered companies on EOS in the United States. There's probably another 100,000 it's unknown, because all of their materials are free online. Okay, so all the materials and to bring EOS into your organization is free for you. There's a book called Traction, and you read the book called Traction. You work the EOS, you grab the EOS materials, and you're getting it. You go for it. I am not an EOS certified consultant, somebody they call an implementer. But what I do is I help companies. Like I have one of the pieces to that business operating system. You got to have a weekly meeting, okay? That kind of an all hands on deck, depending upon the size of the company. And in EOS, it's called L10. It's a level 10 meeting, and there's some reasons it's called that. But I have two companies that I do L10 meetings with them each week. So I have their staff. They're small companies. We have an L10 meeting. The meeting is run a certain way, and there's 6 components to EOS. Talking about, like vision, data, process, traction, people. So you go through and there's different components of that. So I help typically small companies with their getting in to EOS and bringing them up to speed on EOS. And it's not easy. It's you start bringing, company that's been around for a while. The earlier you start using this in your company, the better off that you are. And but a subset of that around the people, especially, is the right people, right place. Jim Collins talked about that back in around. He wrote the book around 2005, 6, 7. About 2003 or 4, good to great, and all the companies that were good, that become great. They had one of the commonalities was that those companies had a way of getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and putting them into the right seat. So that's something that I help companies specifically out with in the EOS framework or outside the EOS framework, and use a couple of assessments, in particular the Working Genius assessment, which is different than all the other assessments in that it's a productivity assessment, where the people helps you determine where they are in the workflow. Are they starters? Are they finishers?
Yeah. And so that consulting part of it then is literally consulting work with helping them systems, the stuff that's needed to be successful, I should say, or to keep it on the right path. So
one of the things like this morning,
good habits and
good habits, documenting processes. That's one of the hardest things for people to do.
Because it's tedious.
Yeah, and I do it this way, and Well,
Yeah,
keep it on paper. And
how
so
many
that
times you heard that, Danny?
other people can do it.
That's not the way I do it.
Yeah, and so, but document it. So if you don't have it documented, you can't scale very well. You
No,
might hire somebody and train them. You might hire and train your first person, even your second person. By the time you get to your third person and on, it's all getting watered down, and
it's bad.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very bad. So yeah.
All right. So what are peer-to-peer? Let me bring this up to the audience. What are peer-to-peer advisory groups? And I love the concept of advisory groups. I've had several, throughout the years. Excuse me, throughout the years. Tell me a little bit about how you utilize them.
This is, you go into and somebody goes to my website, and they're going to see a lot of things about. I'm a Christian, and I do all this, and I lead myself out through the lens of what I call the lens of faith. Okay, but a big part of what people I work with, they're trying to connect their faith to their work. Okay,
Gotcha.
My peer-to-peer advisory group. There's some big peer-to-peer advisory groups out there. Vistage, C12, the alternative board is called TAB. Couple of others, and those are peer-to-peer advisory groups. So this one in particular is for people that want to. They're wanting to do a deeper dive into connecting their faith and their work. So I limit this to 8 to 12, and right now I'm only doing men. I haven't done a female yet. I don't, probably not. I shouldn't be doing. When people come together in this, they start sharing some things. Now, not all groups are like that, but I've noticed people will, a man or a woman will hold back. There's a lady here in town that's doing a women's only peer-to-peer group, and meeting with her. Hopefully in the next month or so, I want to learn more about her and what she's doing, so I can refer the ladies over there. But what we do here is we meet for a half a day once a month. I have a bit of an agenda that I go through, and then I meet with them on the week that the weeks we don't meet as an advisory group. I meet with them for an hour, each of the members for individual coaching. But they're also getting advisory peer-to-peer. It's not just me. Okay. I have a structured agenda that we go through for part of that 4 to 5 hours that we're together once a month. And but that's where relationship starts growing. You start learning. I was part of a peer-to-peer group, one of the TAB peer-to-peer advisory groups back in about 06 or 07, 08 through there, and developed some good relationships through hearing other. Here's the trouble I've got, and hearing how other people handle it, what they've gone through, and it's a place where you're sharing experience but not opinions. You and I've talked about this.
So define. Tell me about that definition of opinions real quick.
Well, you ask, you'll have people come to you and say, "Hey, I need your opinion about something." I go, "Nope, not give you my opinion. I'll give you my experience, but not opinion." There's a big difference.
There you go. Keep that in mind. That's such a great point to say to people. I'm not going to give you an opinion, but I can tell you through experience, okay? Because that matters. Because experience matters. That's not an opinion. This is what I experienced, and this is experience right here.
And you take that mindset over into coaching, and that somebody says, "Danny, I need your advice." Okay, or just somebody comes up to me or calls me, "I need your advice." I said, I can't advise you on that. I had somebody that had a daughter die a few months ago.
Wow.
I haven't had a daughter die, so I can't give any advice around that.
Right.
I've had parents that have died, so I can't give any advice how to handle that. There's some books I can recommend that written by people who have had people. So somebody asked me for advice about something, and they, I'll pray for them, but I can't give you advice. And that's in business, in life, whatever. And there's a whole lot of people online that give people advice. They have no idea what they're talking about.
I agree. I just wanted to hear that because the world's full of opinions, and I always say I would rather hear from somebody that's experienced, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. So this is big for your end, mine too, but through the lens of scriptures, you try to view life with your Christian walk, Danny, as through how the scriptures dictate how our activity and lifestyle should be directed through our business, right? You've done a lot of research on how work and spirituality relate, right? And so this is this is kind of one of your big topics, actually.
Yeah, this is kind of moving into the main and maybe the only thing that I really, I see myself within a couple of years that everything is going to be around this.
Makes sense.
We're well. Let me go down this path. Back to the EOS and the 6 components of the EOS. Give you an idea. An entrepreneur. You have Michael Gerber and E-Myth. So everybody understand, E-Myth was written back in the 70s, I think, and E stands for entrepreneur, not the internet or electronic, all that. Right. So it's electronic. The entrepreneur myth, and that somebody that's pretty good at something, say as a baker. Somebody bakes great pies, and you need to go in business. So they start baking pies, and this story's out of the book E-Myth. And within a few months, they're spending all their time ordering supplies and paying bills and trying to find new vendors and expanding they're not baking anymore. That's a typical entrepreneur. They just can't get a handle on it, what you were doing. Okay. And there's times we all need to be in our business. Other times we need to be, on our business. And so through the lens of scripture, I take those components of business, vision, let's say vision, people, but even metrics or / data. And I look at that through the lens of scripture. What does scripture say? What did Jesus say about data? He said you take data, meaning numbers and a few other things. No, he does. It's a massive amount what he talks about in scripture. There's a lot of stuff around data and numbers and teach me to number my days. Okay. And and vision, most of us have a vision. We have this vision, but maybe it's not connected to the calling that we're supposed to have.
That makes sense.
That we have. So I take that, we reframe it. We go to Matthew 7:7. It says, "Ask and you'll find. I ask and you'll receive. Seek and you'll find. Knock and doors will be open to you." Most of us, we have this vision that's really not much more than our ego. Okay, when you get right down to it, and then we start knocking and we start selling and we start going networking, we start doing all this, and we've never asked and seeked. So when you put it into you think of a posture, having a posture of ask first, then seek before you start knocking. And too many times, I've got something and I'm down a path and I've realized I'm asking Lord to bless what I want to do. And a verse in Proverbs says that that in our hearts, in his heart, man will make plans, but the Lord establishes our steps. Yeah. So we back up and we just, Lord, what do you establish for me today? And so it's that lens of scripture that in all of the the 6 components of EOS. It really covers all of our business and much of our life. And when we start taking that and, through the lens of Scripture, but much like you and I've talked about the 15 invaluable laws of growth, might have something on my website there about that through the lens of Scripture, the book Speed of Trust, and some other things. So for those that are listening that are believers, and they wonder where I'm coming from, anything that I recommend a lot of books and materials. I've tested it through the lens of Scripture, and I've got a few that I won't recommend because it doesn't match up to Scripture. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I know this is a big area that you really have done your research in and really pay attention to. And I'll tell them why in a minute. But one thing you're also really, 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 you're an avid reader. I know that. I read, but I don't read like Danny reads. So Danny, books, kind of a lost art today, huh? I mean, there's just so much interruptions to our life, and even now with AI coming out, our brain power is getting stolen away a little bit. The value of books, and put your own 2 cents in it, because this is where you have really become.
Well,
you've read an amazing amount of books. Let me just say that.
And somebody asked me a few years ago, our friend Eric Cedar Park, he asked me, he said, "Why do you read so much?" I said, and I blurted it out at the time, and I thought, I know I've probably heard or read that somewhere and before, but I said, and he said, "Why do you read so much?" I said, "I'm desperate." And he goes, "What do you mean you're desperate?" And I said, "I'm desperate because I know I'm going to change, and I want to change. I want to have some control over my change." Zig Ziglar told me back in 1990 that I was going to be the same 5 years in 1995. I was going to be the same then in 1995 as I was in 1990, except for what I listened to, what I watched, what I read, who I hang out with.
Wow.
And so being purposeful about what I read, and I spent a few years on and off of Twitter and Facebook and such, and I'm not on it much these days. Every once in a while, I'll get hung up somewhere. I'll go into YouTube to look something up, like I will on this, and I've got a thing set on my phone so that after 15 minutes, it times out, and I have to click a couple of things to stay in there. But that's to remind me, and I go, "Oh my gosh, I forgot what I was even coming here for. I got sucked into this." But happens. But reading, it just I don't get wrapped up in all the energy around politics because it hasn't changed. I decided probably about 35 years ago, I was going to read a autobiography of every signer of the Constitution. Now, I read over 20. I forget how many there are. I read over 20, and then I found Wikipedia, and I kind of read the rest of them on Wikipedia. As I said, I've read something about all the signers of the Constitution. Well, I'm reading a book right now that was recommended to me by my son's mother-in-law. I want to say it's the best of the best, but it's something else. I told somebody today it's the best. It's about the best, and it's by a guy named Talmage. Forget his last name, but it's 7 American presidents.
Wow.
And I think Reagan was the last. It was the last one, but from Washington, Reagan. And I'm reading that, and it's actually a biography of other biographies about each of those presidents. And and I'm reading through it, and the fighting between Adams and Jefferson. I mean, there was so much, and they hated Alexander Hamilton, and Jefferson did his. You go all that, you can compare it right to all the politics today.
Wow.
And so when there's nothing's changed other than we've got social media that just kind of magnifies a lot of it, but
yes,
backside and all that. And there was a guy during Washington's second term that after he died, I forget what his position was. It was before the Treasury was Alexander Hamilton established the Treasury. He was siphoning money out of Virginia and for his own personal use. I mean, so this is late 1700s. So all this stuff's been really going on. So you learn that you increase your knowledge base to draw from.
And I think books are valuable. They help your brain stay motivated, but they're, while there's nothing new under the sun, there are certain ways people explain things that make it better understandable and put into practice, right? So that's the goal. So one other thing, you've got a little category in there called Younger Every Day. That does attract me a little bit.
Yeah, there's a book about 3 or 4 years ago. I went to a West Austin Chamber event, and I just done it was about 2.5 years ago, and I just completed what's called a 4x4 by 48.
Yeah.
Where you run and or walk. Most people are going to not run it, all of it, but every 4 hours you get out and you go 4 miles, and you do that 12 times, so that in 48 hours you will have walked and run 48 miles. So if you started at 2 o'clock in the morning, you get up, you go out, do 4 miles, come back, take a nap, do it at 6 o'clock and 10 and 2 and 6 and 10. So you do that for 48 hours, and you've completed 48 hours. Yeah. So he came up to me and he said, "So you're a Younger Next Day guy?" And I said, or Younger Next Year guy. And I said, "Oh, I like that." He said, "You haven't read that book?" So there's a book called Younger Next Year. I just reframed it. I have a little bit of a mindset that I have to work out every day.
Me too.
I just take off a day every once in a while. And that comes from a friend named Brian Wood 35 years ago. I said, "Brian, you work out a lot." And he said, "How often do you work out?" He said, "Every day. I just miss one every once in a while." Well, when it comes to my coaching, I need coaching every day. I need accountability every day. I need, time in scripture every day. I need, so most of us, we just want to take off. We just take off every once in a while. So my Younger every day, I think I've got a caption on there. There's a couple of captions on there. One of them says that if I'm not hurting today, I didn't do enough yesterday. Okay. That kind of goes with everything in our life. Most of us, I'm 70, and you're okay. I wasn't going to say how old you were. People might not know, but
they know. I don't care.
Yeah. And we're about the same age, but we need to be moving every day. Most people our age, they want to lay down. My knee hurts, my shoulder hurts. I've got shoulder problems from my bypass 2 years ago, and lost some muscle and had an allergic reaction to the statin. I've got a little bit of a knee problem. I've got a hip and lower back problem, but I still get out there and I still get it done. And I didn't make it full 48 miles. I thought I'd blown a meniscus or something 2 weeks ago, but
Don't do that.
So a little bragging, maybe also establish the point. It's not just something I say. It is that on the 2nd year anniversary of my 5X bypass, I did 45 miles in about 46 hours 2 weeks ago.
That's good.
Did the last 3 miles
Wow.
and extremely slow. My knee, I went out, had to come back and kind of anyway. But you just keep going. You don't. If my left knee hurts, but my right knee hurts, but a little bit. But my left knee does, and my shoulder blades hurt, but my chest doesn't. So exercise what you can. That's kind of what It just you just get tired of excuses, and so anyway.
Yeah. So the typical client for you, can you tell us who is your perfect client right now?
My ideal client that I really enjoy working with is that client that is trying to get unstuck. They don't know what's going on in their life, and they're wanting to, but they want to connect their faith and their work, and they're just working through that, and sometimes that takes a 10 to 15-minute call, almost every day at times, and then
Sure.
there'll be a period where they get unstuck, and then then we move into to just once a week, and then we move into might not talk for 2 or 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden a challenge comes up. They can work through that challenge.
Yep.
Hopefully they've learned something that I've helped them with before, or they've been working through it, but they don't want to jump in back too quick, because you get with a coach to help you through something else. Just like in athletics, all athletes have coaches
Yes.
and such. I do have one thing we haven't mentioned, CBLG. You mentioned it earlier, but CBLG went on for about 10, 11 years, which is a weekly networking event called Christian Business Leaders Group. Didn't meet in 23 nor 24 until December of 24. I spun it back up. It meets on Mondays at lunch. Is still a networking going on. It's just great to see. There's typically 12, 15 people there, but I'm teaching lessons around EOS through the lens of Scripture. Okay, and living all that out, and so there's 6 parts to EOS, and there's 3 lessons around each of those 6 parts, and so that's what's going on there around that. Again, around my ideal client, it has to do with that. People that are that engaged in their business and through Scripture, and wanting to put good business principles in play, but understand what God says about all that. And God has a lot to say about it with the people. How you hire the right people, and we're provided with so many tools.
And the mission statement, Danny, I imagine for your business too, like, what ethics you're going to follow, your integrity principles and stuff that we incorporate in our business, how we're going to treat our clients, how we're going to have this mission all laid out and understand it and build on it. That's really cool.
Yeah, cool. And that's so important. Just had 3 weeks ago, had a client that went through a series, reestablished his values, and now we're working on it.
Good.
And how do you train the client? How do you train your employees around those values? And and all that matters to your culture.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone through your accountability, your circles of how you're helping people. What do you want to leave with this listening audience? And by the way, the on demand will be really good, because people will come in and definitely listen to it, and we'll create some shorts. But how are people more open with what's going on today in the world to be a little bit more nervous about In other words, are people are looking for hope from things. You know what I'm saying? They want a good message and they want people to help guide them through this minefield of life. I didn't make that up, by the way. That's somebody else said that a long time ago. Just so you know. So I guess what I'm getting to is final thoughts. Anything, because you've been through so many different build. I look at everything you do as a stair step to next level, next level, next level. Right? I was intrigued when you were really focused on your four pillars. Of that we went through back in the day. I'm going to encourage everybody to listen to this podcast today. Just do me a favor. Just go check out Danny's website. But and I'm gonna bring it back up again, and I'll put it in the link under my channel, so it'll be linked in there, and you guys but reach out to him. He loves to do. You like to do one-on-one still, don't you? I mean, you really you use Zoom and talk to anybody, right?
Yeah. I mean, you go to my website. Heard he has up there, but
there's a calendar. You can go set an appointment.
Easy way to get there. Everybody can remember sometimes the entrepreneur journey .what, but you go to DannyLSmith.com, and that will take you there. So DannyLSmith.com, that will take you there. Go to the calendar and
book some time.
Yeah. Yes, just book some time and with me. But the four pillars. That's what I work through. I don't talk to a lot of clients about it.
No, but it's part of what you've incorporated here, right?
Is always moving towards your why, acting on what you can control. That's one of the things that most of us get all wrapped up about, something that we can't control. Okay, politics. Okay, we can't. Can't control.
Darn.
Okay, but rely on thinking, not thoughts. We get wrapped up in our thoughts too much. Okay. Right. But thinking is different than thoughts. Okay. One's passive, one's active. And then always be building yourself out in front of, now the pillar I think on the site says out in front of your business, but build yourself out in front of where you are today. Because what happens is today, what you've got, you might have it rocking and you got all this business coming in, but sooner or later your business is going to outrun your abilities. And so you have to be out in front of it, building yourself. And
there's that saying, Danny, that you always tell people: one cannot outrun their what?
Their own abilities. They can't outrun
their self-image. Yeah,
self-image. And so that reminds me, one of my mainstay books is Psycho-Cybernetics, the Maxwell Maltz version of that. And
love that book.
Yeah, but if we're shutting down, on my website, I've got a quote right at the very top by Winston Churchill, that success is not final, failure is not final.
That's correct.
Courage to continue that counts. I've seen people succeed. They outrun their own net worth. Basically, they outrun their own assets, their own abilities. It happened, and they don't have the courage to keep on. Okay, and then I've had people, and I've been guilty of getting wrapped up in my own head around failure and over analyzing. One time, about 13, 14 years ago, my wife said, "You okay?" And I said, "No." She said, "You hadn't been okay." I said, "Yes." Why? She said, "You hadn't been okay in a while. You need to go take one of your beloved assessments to see if you can figure out what." And so I did, and I called an old coach. We re-engaged, and he started helping me through some stuff. And
I love it.
So we all get wrapped up in our own thoughts.
We do. Yeah. That's probably why IBM came up with that little thing that they put in their desk back in the 60s called Think.
Yeah.
Think.
Yeah. There's a
Right.
house I lived in a few years ago. There was a car, young lady. She had this Volkswagen Beetle, and she had a bumper sticker that said, "It's okay to still think."
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, this has been really good. I mean, me and you
Thanks,
talked quite
buddy.
a bit.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very
Well,
much.
we talk, quite a bit when we get a chance and catch up on and tell lots of funny stories and basically laugh about stuff nowadays. But especially about getting older. But that's just part of the course. But yeah, so I will personally tell you it's been a help in my life. Um, Danny directed me to a lot of awesome books that were kind of behind the scenes that, things from Atomic Habits to Checklist Manifesto, the Cumulative Effect, the Five Laws of Value, all John Maxwell's books, even older books, the Zig Ziglar, the Good, the Game, whatever that one was. I still have that in the shelf and still refer to it. So, I mean, you can never, and I love this, Danny. I keep thinking this, and this is the thing that stuck with me through all these years: is one cannot outperform their self-image.
Yeah.
Most people probably just now heard that and don't even know what the heck I'm saying.
Yeah.
But so you just got to stay with it. There is no end to the journey. That's the point.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's and that statement right there drives so much. It should drive so much change.
Yeah.
But you cannot long outperform your self image. Okay. And so. Yeah.
Well, one other thing, and that is if you'll go down on my channel, if you happen to be watching this, and those that come in on demand when you come back to watch this, it just happened to stumble across it. Danny and I did a 15-week literally podcast on the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, which is the John C. Maxwell book, right? And we covered law of intentionality, law of curiosity, the law of change, you name it, right? The modeling law. Go listen. Each one of those is about an hour, and they're chock full of great stuff. I mean, you could coach yourself right. You could get great information and live your life through that without any of our help. That's for sure. But I say hire this guy. Go grab him. Take a look at his website. Just get to know him. He loves one-to-ones. And Danny, I'm gonna make you sit tight as soon as it's over to make sure your recording side loads up okay. So guys, thank you, everybody. Danny, any last thoughts? Just say hi, right?
Yep. No excuses.
No excuses. Thank you, my friend. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.